Tonight we're going to talk about honesty.
Honesty.
Being honest about honesty.
Honesty and change.
Yeah.
Yeah, the topic actually came to us after we were recapping last week's session where I was giving Kay some, how would you call it? What was I giving you?
Some serious grump?
Yeah. I thought she would say I was giving her some shit, but
No, so serious grump is just okay.
no, I felt like...
We should maybe mention what the session was about. I think otherwise it's a bit...
well, the
difficult to
session
understand.
was about not being prepared, as I am not prepared today. I thought I'll keep loyal to that episode. But you were super talking about like you're very good at being unprepared and in flow.
Yeah, talking about the end result. That's what you said, basically.
Yeah, I felt like we were not living up to our goal with the podcast.
Oh, I promise.
Yeah, to be honest about the nitty gritty and change, the process itself. So the reason we're making this podcast is to not show the end result, but show the process. And that's where I was still giving you serious grump. And I have to reiterate, I don't think you understand how important it is for if we're doing this together, that the other person also shows up honest and vulnerable, you know?
You think I'm not aware of how important? That's
Uh,
what you said.
I don't know. I think I'm just reiterating that.
Okay.
I think it
Just
is
to be sure.
it is easy to show up online with like a polished image and be like, hey, this is the amazing me, while the night before you were having a sleepless, restless turning and tossing in bed.
No.
And we're about sharing that sleepless turning and tossing, not because it's cool, but because it's humane, it's normal, it's a thing. And that triggered kind of the topic honesty,
Yeah.
where we are for here today. So for me, I relate everything, all our topics, always back to change. And change and honesty, I find they are two very important aspects of each other. Are you truly honest when you change your mind? Can you be changing in your honesty? Like yesterday, you said this, now you say that. They're both your honest self.
Yeah.
But mostly, as we're doing this podcast and as I've reached out to people as well, when you're going through a tough period of change, can you be honest about that? And then the honesty really is more related to vulnerability and really talking about that process where it's not nice. And you also shared afterwards, after we had a couple of conversations, that really sitting in those feelings are painful.
Yeah, it really, like a couple days ago, it came to me. I was like, actually, why I maybe kind of skip a portion of the process is because it's really painful to get yourself back into that headspace of how you felt. So sometimes it's also difficult to, yeah, kind of your body resists to access it, I would say. And you really have to like walk over this threshold to be like, yeah, but I really want to share how I felt.
Yeah, that is
How the discomfort was.
Yeah, I think that's the vow. I think not to. A lot of people might feel lonely in what they're feeling, and a lot of people also struggle with really accessing those emotions. Like as you describe it, there's this resistance after the fact. Well, I can say there's also resistance during the fact, and when it's happening, there's always resistance towards vulnerability.
Yeah.
Because we've been nurtured in this way that that's not a strong quality. And I was talking to my what's it, sculpting teacher. His wife has MS, and he was like, "Yeah, it's crazy. She's really declining in function and like independence." And I'm like, "Yeah, you guys are also there, like in their 50s. You are also from the generation that you just keep a stiff upper lip and you don't say anything when you're going through a horrible life event."
Yeah.
and being honest about your emotions in those moments is not easy.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's why we're trying to set a little bit of inspiration in this pod. And let's go. You've been well prepared for today. I see
Oh, you
you.
go first. It's okay.
Yeah, for me, I think it relates back to our last conversation. Uh, right now, if you look at the change you are going through,
Mm.
what parts of it are hard to be honest about?
Which part of the change do you mean exactly?
Yeah, you choose the part that is hard to be honest about.
I think everything that exposes a side that you just don't feel comfortable with sharing, that is maybe not the strong, beautiful one, that is always hard to. So if I don't know, like the way we are together and something sometimes just create um, confusion or discussions, it's difficult to also admit to be like, yeah, maybe my reply earlier was not my best, and
Mm.
to really, yeah, admit that maybe you haven't paid enough attention or reacted not the way you want. It's just like I find that sometimes really difficult because it is exposing a vulnerable side of yourself.
What you mean is admitting a mistake?
Yeah, not necessarily a mistake only, but to like reflect back on the situation and be like, yeah, it's maybe even before the mistake to really admit and be like, yeah, I haven't maybe paid enough attention to, I haven't held the space open for you to share something. I
Mm.
just reacted instead of responding. It's not even a mistake necessarily. It's
No,
something
not at
before
all.
that.
That's something you find hard to be honest about.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah, because it is something that you have to first of all admit to yourself that you are not very proud of how you acted in the situation.
Mm.
So that's the first step where I myself look into myself and I'm like, yeah, that was really a poor reaction.
Okay.
And then to speak that out, like, first of all, I can beat myself up because my inner critic is strong enough to tell me that was really bad. So that's like the first threshold of like, yeah, okay, shit, that didn't really went well. And then to speak it out to someone that you care about and be like, hey, that was not my best reaction, is the second border to pass. And
But it makes me think because now you say it's difficult to say that to somebody you care about.
yeah.
If you think of yourself in a situation with people that you don't know very well,
Hmm.
what are things that you find hard being honest about in those moments or those dynamics?
It really depends on the situation. I cannot like just pull one thing. I don't know.
Hmm. I was thinking about the day we had with Maria in Bogota,
Yeah.
that you were tired and you were,
See, it's much better if you give an example.
yeah.
Yeah.
But then I'm. What about saying, "Hey, I am tired"? Is hard about. Well, you explained you didn't want to be a party pooper. You
You're
didn't want
gonna
to.
disappoint. You're just gonna disappoint. Even if you manage expectations because you're like, I'm tired, I feel sick, I feel this and that, I just want to go home. But the first reaction you're gonna trigger is disappointment. Because people wanted to hang out with you, want to spend some time with you, and you be like, no, I'm just not able to function.
No.
So whatever comes after
But
might
but
be
but
different,
here's the
but
question. So you are saying, okay, if I say the thing I want to say, then people will get disappointed.
mhm,
So if you're honest about what is hard about that situation, what is hard about it?
dealing with the disappointment.
Dealing with other people's disappointment stops you from being honest.
Hmm.
Is that something that is valid across the board, or is just with some people, other people not?
No, I don't think there's something like is valid across the board. I don't think so.
Okay, I just
Sometimes
ask.
I mean, the other side would also be admitting to myself that actually, like in that case, there was a limited amount of days and time to see people.
No.
and also just like to admit to myself that I'm actually tired and cannot function is also something where I'm not happy about. Makes me feel miserable too.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking back.
Like, and also like especially that evening was just a miserable combination of factors. Like when I'm tired and find myself in a social setting where I don't want to disappoint people, then I really react poorly. Because then I rather would push myself than speak up and be like, which I think taught me a lot this time, to really be like, hey, but what, I mean, you asked me a couple of times, what do you want? And I was just like, please don't ask me that question. I just like, because it was like giving responsibility to someone in some sense and not deciding for myself. But I think it taught me a lot to just really be like, yeah, I mean, it might be a first step of disappointment if you say that, but at the same time, if people care for you, they will not be disappointed for a long time.
Yeah, what it makes me think of is how you would function in a group dynamic where everybody's kind of standing up for their own right.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's, I don't know, imagine you're with five people on a trip
Mm-hmm.
and everybody wants something else.
Mm-hmm.
Then you will not say what you want, or
Of course, I would.
and why is that different?
I cannot tell you why that is different, honestly.
Okay.
It really depends on the space, depends on the time, depends how I feel. It's not there's like a cookie cutter approach that if that X is given, I behave Y. And
Okay, yeah,
there is
no,
no
that makes
such
sense,
thing.
but I feel like
If I
there
feel
is
safe
this
enough in some sense to share,
exactly this safe enough.
yeah.
If that like is pressured by time or newness or I don't know, a social norm, whatever,
Mhm.
then you will not be honest about your desires and needs.
It's really difficult to describe the feeling safe enough. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think I don't know. I think I think the combination was just really poor.
No, that's just
That
an
was just a full
example.
package
But
too.
the thing is, like we also spoke about last week's episode about
Mm.
being unprepared and going through that process and all the emotions that are related to being unprepared, being stressed out, being worried that you might fail, being and in that session you also I felt like you weren't really being honest. That's what I
Mm.
spoke to you about afterwards.
Mm.
What was it? Uh, no, actually, you told me afterwards. It was because going back to that state of mind
Mm.
is not a nice place to go,
Mm.
so I'd rather not go there.
Yeah, and I kind of like, I think in many sense, I think with the end in mind. So if something is uncomfortable
Mm.
and I did it before and I still have this discomfort feeling, I'm like, how did it feel afterwards? To access situation from the end
Mm.
makes it easier to pull through.
Yeah, but
But then you share more the end result rather than the way, you
no,
know?
but the question is about the honesty about, like you said, it was a discomfortable situation,
Hmm.
and it's about being honest. Apparently, for you, being honest about your discomforts is,
Painful?
but also like there is a barrier, like I don't know, something a weird example, like with Nagas and Yagoi,
Yeah.
they have a yoga school. Once in a while, there's a yoga class going on. Uh, Somebody just gets up and walks away in the middle of the class.
Hmm.
Nobody knows why. Sometimes
Hmm.
some people are having an emotional moment. Sometimes people get up, tell the teacher, your class sucks, your voice sucks, the
Hmm.
room sucks, the
Whatever.
whatever there is, I will not sit this next 30, 40 minutes, whatever is left of the class.
Hmm.
I'm going to grab my stuff and go. That's a high level of honesty, also not
Disruption.
just being
Yeah.
like, hey, this is not comfortable for me.
Mm-hmm.
I will not, how do you say it? Endure it. I
Mm-hmm.
will eject myself from the
Mm-hmm.
situation. I don't see you doing that very quickly. Like
No.
you sat in the cold salt bath, the floating thingy, and then at some point you were like, okay, I had enough. You know, the allowing the discomfort to be voiced is also part of being honest, right?
That's one side.
Definitely, there are
That's
more,
one
yeah,
side.
more sides to it.
The other side for me is the stamina. If something feels discomfort, is something feels really uncomfortable for me, I'm
Mm,
sitting with it. I'm like, what is it trying to tell me?
mm,
Like if you have a certain yoga pose, that's a good example. If you sit in meditation, you're like, there's like no position feels comfortable whatsoever you do.
mm,
And then I'm like, aha. So this is the lesson. To just sit in it, sit in the
mm.
juice and just find it.
Yeah, but that is an internal conversation. I feel like now we're talking more about honesty in a sharing context, when you talk to somebody or not.
I don't
But I
understand what
think,
you.
yeah, I think it is definitely a good thing to be honest with yourself. Like, hey, I am uncomfortable, but actually, what am I uncomfortable with? If
Yeah,
you're
because
talking
there's
about the
usually
meditation,
something on a deeper level that is creating this discomfort. Like
yeah.
seeing my therapist yesterday and speaking about the pain, and she was also like, "Yeah, if you sit with it, what is it trying to tell you?"
Mm.
So yeah, I can just like treat it all the time or just ignore it all the time, but actually there is a deeper message in it. So yeah,
Listening
I
to it.
would sit in the class. If someone annoys the fuck out of me, then
Mm.
I'm like, what is this person having in store for me that annoys the fuck out of me? What is there to
Mm.
take out of it, you know? Because the like I think I explained the anti-shadow theory once. Like if someone triggers something in you, then there
So
is something
mirroring
either like
something.
you experience yourself that you really denied or something that you would truly really like to be.
Yeah.
So I'm like more the psychological approach to that. No, I would not
What
stand
is
up.
the hardest thing for you to be honest about? It's like the top.
Just like the top. Like really, really honestly talking about emotions and how I feel.
Mm.
And if I feel unsafe, especially that part is really hard.
So talking about your emotions honestly.
Yeah, like talking about my emotion out of a space where I feel unsafe.
Okay.
Talking about emotions is one thing, but talking about emotions when you feel unsafe is definitely one of the hardest things to do.
Okay.
To really, first of all, to admit, hey, whatever it is, whatever we're talking about, I just feel not safe. Can we create this space of safety, first of all?
Mm.
To also like claim that space, speak out about that space and claim that space, that's something that is not easy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it's counterintuitive. Like when you're in an unsafe space, you want to either fight or run away, or you want to turn into a ball and disappear.
Guys usually fight, girls usually shut down or start crying. That's what it is.
And
But
then to
for me,
step
that
it.
is already exposed. If I start crying, that is already exposing so much vulnerability
Mhm.
that then adding a dimension of talking is just too much.
It's
It's
difficult.
just too much.
And besides being too much, is it hard to be honest in those moments?
It's hard to put that into words, to express.
But does that have to do with being honest?
Yeah. Being honest in terms of saying, hey, I feel unsafe.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like if you don't speak up, that then this sense of discomfort is sticking with you, but there is no further exchange and exposure.
Well, you're
You know?
talking about sharing something that is uh, you experience as threatening,
Yeah.
and that is giving away your soft spots, your weak
Yeah.
spots, basically. So that makes sense that that's
Yeah, really, like if I
difficult to be
think back,
honest about that in those moments.
yeah, I would rather catch myself really shutting down and not speaking up. But of course, there is also a certain dimension that comes from the past. However, you have been around people and however people have been treating you,
Hmm.
also kind of like creates how you react. And I think there's a certain level of intimacy and vulnerability that when I get to this dimension, I just shut down. I just really struggle to open up
And
and
are
say
you
in
are
first
you
place.
honest with yourself in those moments? Do you hear your own thoughts and feelings?
I do.
You just don't voice them.
It's just like it's not that they are like super clear and I can just basically one to one translate it in speaking. Sometimes it's just like I need to like put it into a place because they just overwhelm me like a wave. That's probably the best way to explain it. They just overrun me. And that also
Well, it's
creates this
normal to
feeling.
be overwhelmed. And that's just the saying. Like, I'm overwhelmed right now. Don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Then you need a moment or two or whatever you need.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
And who do you find most difficult to be honest with?
People that are really close and are around in those situations.
But besides that situation, just in general, are you a very honest person? Carry your heart on your sleeve?
Yeah.
And then what was your answer?
People that are very close
So you find it very difficult to be honest with people that are very close.
in those situations.
What does that mean?
In those particular situations that we just talked about.
When you feel unsafe?
Yeah. And I have people around that are really close,
Yeah.
then it's really difficult to be honest.
What if you have people around who are not close? You will be honest with them?
Yeah, if someone like would make a stupid comment that doesn't sit well and that someone is not close and I don't really care for that person, I can definitely turn way more into a defensive mode and be like, hey, listen, that was not great. What was that?
Yeah. Okay, so what I'm understanding is if
Analytics.
people are close and you care about them and there is a certain relationship at stake, then you react differently.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if it's just
Someone.
the neighbor being silly in the middle of the night,
Yeah.
it was like, hey, what are you doing, man? This is not cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if it's your boyfriend playing loud music in the middle of the night, you'll just be like,
Yeah, that's a poor example,
very poor example.
but
Whatever creates that safety of feeling of unsafety,
mm,
you will voice it differently with people you know.
mm,
Yeah, I think I've tried to ask you as many questions as
yeah,
I could think of. Yeah. No, thanks
you're
for your
welcome.
honesty, I hope.
What you've been talking with Marco on his podcast was the concept of radical introspection.
Mm.
And I was wondering if you could explain that further and also talk about honesty in that context.
Mm. Just talk about radical
Yeah, I find it
self
really,
inquiry,
yeah,
not introspection, self inquiry.
yeah, I find it pretty difficult to like, if you don't have any external sources to really be really, really honest with yourself.
I think.
You know, until the point where it really hurts.
No, I disagree. I think you don't need external sources to be very honest with yourself.
I didn't say you don't need them. I just said that sometimes it's difficult.
It is the basically, as you say, okay, I sit in meditation, I'm uncomfortable. What is this discomfort trying to tell me? Uh, Figure out for yourself what are all the lies that you're telling yourself to keep yourself and your existence intact. Okay, these are not fun questions, but they are uh, basically keep looking for the answer in yourself instead of saying something happened in the outside of me, and that's why I feel this way. So I don't know what your question is exactly, but for me, the most important part is, yeah, also acknowledging the little voices in your head that maybe call you a fraud or maybe call you a good for nothing. What is the lie in that? What is the truth in that? Um, okay, you're in essence, are you a good being? You're put on this planet to be of positive result and effect, but it's not guaranteed that you behave flawlessly, and also keep a spotless record of the world in your head. Sometimes you twist the story also in a certain way that makes you feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
Truly admitting to yourself that you suck at certain moments and uh, have been an asshole in others. I think it's yeah, it's how you get to know yourself.
Yeah. Have you ever caught yourself being dishonest with yourself?
Yeah.
Could you give an example?
Um, I think it's a constant cycle of me uh, my mind comparing certain things, stepping away from why I'm doing things, and putting it in what for instance, with my work at Amomuto, coaching, making group programs. The moments that I struggle with being motivated because I'm like, oh, everything is not there where I want it to be yet. Those moments I find that I am tricking myself.
In what sense?
In the sense that it is about me. It's not about me. It's about the people I facilitate.
Okay.
So my perspective shifts in towards like, oh, this is not convenient for me, but hey, like you're doing this for other people, right? So
Yeah, that's like your main mission.
yeah, and I think in the past examples were very yeah, what are you actually doing something for? So for a very long time I thought I had certain ambitions while actually I was running away from certain things, but I masked those escapes as certain ambitions.
Could you make them more clear?
um Working really hard because standing still was too painful.
Okay. Okay.
A very simple example, like um, I think that then you're lying to yourself. You're not admitting that you have trouble sitting with yourself. Actually, you're saying, no, I want to be at the top of the top before that age. That's why I don't sleep. That's why I don't rest. That's why I only put my head on the pillow when I collapse.
Yeah. Sounds familiar.
Yeah, so I think those are examples of not being honest with yourself. No.
Good one. Thanks for sharing.
Sure.
Have you ever been holding back on being honest in a certain situation? And if so, why?
Plenty.
Would want to share a bit what it taught you and
It's
why you
like
did it?
salt. If you put too much, it gets too salty sometimes. I think there's a time and place for everything. It has a lot to do with diplomacy, something I'm not good at. So sometimes I just say things at the wrong moment, in the wrong energy, the wrong time, and that from that you learn. So some moments, some things you say later. I took a tattoo when I was 18. My mom was in Iran. I told her when she arrived at the airport and she was standing behind the glass. I showed her. I didn't tell her when I took it. Uh, or some things are difficult to be honest about, so you know them and you want to say them, but you're afraid of the consequences, so you postpone it.
Mm.
I think it's very normal to. I have also had plenty of times that I don't care. I'm like, this is my opinion, take it or leave it.
Mhm.
This is how I feel about the situation, take it or leave it. Or, but if it's not a take it or leave it situation,
Mm.
those are the times that you maybe a little less honesty, just a need to know basis, whatever.
Mhm.
But I
Is it?
think I think it's mostly regarding to information and instances and occurrences, not per se about how I feel. If I feel a certain way about somebody, but that's something I've seen is a bit different with other people. I cannot think something of somebody and tell it to somebody else. I have to tell the person
Mhm.
himself.
Mhm.
So in that sense, I'm pretty straightforward. But with other instances, I'm also not the greatest. But I do think it's honest to say that yeah, sometimes you are asked to lie. I don't know, in a family setting, like
Okay.
don't tell them this and that, whatever, because they will worry.
Yeah.
You know,
And do you recognize any difference with people
what do you
that
mean?
you care more for or less, that you would behave differently?
For me, the people I care most about, I tell them the rock solid truth
Okay.
because that's my way. That's how I've always done it. I also don't. I cannot sit with ease
Mhm.
if I don't. It just it boils up inside of me and then comes out wrong. And for me, I know that what I am saying comes from a good place. And maybe I'm not saying it in a nice way. Or maybe you don't like what I have to say. But I see it as my responsibility to be honest with you because you are in my corner and I
Mhm.
am in yours. Was the conversation I was having with Sarah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like if
Yeah.
you care about a person, then you're this whole machine with intuition and senses and if if you have a off feeling, you're not just gonna not say anything.
Mhm.
I cannot. I've done it with my sister, I've done it with my mother, done it with my father, my uncle, my cousins, and yeah, sometimes it results in, like, I remember one of Mike's brothers, he was having a pretty druggy phase. He was like taking a lot of ecstasy and MDMA. And I was like, "Hey, man, what are you doing?" And he turned around like, "Hey, you're not my dad. Shut the fuck up.
Mhm.
Who are you to tell me anything about
Mhm.
what I do?" But then I explained to him also, like, "Yeah, it's not like it makes a difference to me. I care about you. I care about your happiness. If you would not do these things, would you still be a happy person right now? As long
Mhm.
as you can talk about that with me, I'm good.
Mhm.
You don't have to." how do you say it, justify what you're doing to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not like of a judgy place that you ask.
No.
It's more of a connecting place.
If I judge, then I'm also honest about that. I'm like, in my opinion, that's an ugly outfit. That's my judgment.
Yeah.
But if you have, that's how I show up always as well. I'm like, yeah, this is an ugly outfit, but I feel nice in it, so I'm gonna wear it. Yeah,
Yeah. Fair point.
yeah.
Yeah. Um. And thinking back, have someone ever surprised you with being honest with something that you haven't expected
Mm,
about you?
yeah, yeah.
Care to share?
I think one of the biggest surprises was Shannon when I was in Colombia with her, telling me that it's really heavy and hard to travel with me. That's a high level of
That is, yeah.
honesty. Like, yeah, lifting the chair in and out of the car, it's heavy and it's heavier than I thought. And just sharing that completely blew us up. Not to say that I took it poorly, or I did not know really how to take it, besides feeling like a burden. But also, I have seen people tear up. I feel that that's a sign of honesty and sharing, and just dealing with, like, a lot of people interpret me as a, I don't know, how do you say it, self-sufficient, independent person despite the handicap.
Hmm.
But there are moments that I fall on my ass and have to go through a bumpy ride, and in those moments, yeah, some people are like, "Whoa, what the fuck? This is so intense." I find that pretty honest. That surprises me also.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
something that I don't even allow myself to experience,
Hmm.
because, but like you said, I have the outcome in mind. Like, I'm gonna get through this. I'm not
Hmm.
gonna sink in these sorrows.
Hmm. Yeah.
But for an outstander, it's even hard to see.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a moment in time that they see and that kind of gets into them.
Yeah. Or like my dad, that he freaks out when I'm doing well. Even like when he was here helping me with the chair, and I jumped over from seat to seat,
Hmm.
and he freaked out. And then the next day he called me like, "Yeah, you were moving so smooth, it just tripped me. I was couldn't talk, couldn't function. His hands were shaking and everything."
That is really honesty also, no? That's really
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah, yeah. It's super nice. I remember, I think the toughest thing for me myself was when I was training in Curacao, and my trainer was recording, and I saw myself for the first time crawling, and it looked so troublesome, like so hard. It's
Hmm.
like, whoa, that's me. That looks really like that dude needs some help.
Okay.
Yeah, that's also, then you notice how much people are also giving you space to struggle and proceed and progress, and that's also valuable.
Hmm.
That they don't put the magnifying glass on, like, "Oh, look how slow you are, look how bad you're moving."
Hmm.
Yeah,
Thanks for sharing.
yeah, of course,
I think I learned a lot as well.
definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Those were your questions.
Yes.
Okay, you can say it. Looking at you.
Honesty.
Yeah, yeah. I think um, the I find myself a lot of honesty in writing,
Mm.
just because when you write something, you also, like, look at it and you're like, "Nah, this is nonsense."
Hmm.
Or you
Hmm.
hear yourself thinking like, "No, I don't want to say this." Or like, for instance, you journal, writing a diary, just some place to let it out.
Hmm.
And I definitely think is an important part of life, to be honest.
Mm.
Yeah. Thanks for another episode of Love Change.
Thank you.
Today we have officially hit our 40th episode.
Aye.
40th. Congratulations.
Congrats.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes, please share your learnings. Tune in on several channels that we are streaming it on.
We're everywhere.
Absolutely everywhere. Throw topics at us. We are really happy if you have ideas for topics that are connected to change.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. See you
Thank
all
you.
on the next Tuesday.
Love change out.
Love Change out.